It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com. That's randykabc@gmail.com. It is Friday. Friday means happy hour on the News Blitz, where we talk about food and drinking and travel and adventure and all of the wonderful things that might be happening in your weekend. Because we've had a lot of news this week, it's time to kick the feet up and enjoy yourselves. And today, because we're starting to get into the parts of the year where it gets dark really early, it's getting colder, it gets windy. There's just something about this time of year that gets me real excited to start making all of my favorite comfort food meals. What is a comfort food meal? Well, usually it involves some kind of starch, some kind of stick-to-your-ribs goodness, and I've got a whole bunch of recipes of the things that I love to make when I need some good old-fashioned comfort food, when it's cold and you want to really just enjoy yourself. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I'd love to know, because there's a lot of cooks out there, a lot of chefs out there, what is your go-to comfort food meal? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let me give you an example. This one has become quite the favorite in our house for the last few years. It gets requested from our friends. We have done it for holidays. In fact, we've done it for a Christmas dinner, and we've done it for multiple New Year's. And it is braised beef short ribs. This is one of the best meals there is, and it is so comforting and so happy, and everything is just so good. It gets a perfect use out of our Le Creuset chef's oven, which is a little larger than a Dutch oven, but I love a good braise. Braising is comfort food in so many ways, not only because you're incorporating, wine into a broth, into whatever you're cooking, but while you're braising, while you're slowly cooking something in the oven, the house just smells so good. Like if you have candles going, you extinguish them before you get a braise going. So what is braised beef short ribs? Well, first you got to get yourself some short ribs, and you can get them at Gelson's. I like to go to Jim's Fallbrook Market over in the West Hills area, because they'll cut up a plate of ribs for you right then and there. Like, I need 10 squares. I need 12 squares, whatever you need. Typically, you want to go for about 2 per person. And depending on how big your oven is, how big your pot is, you could probably fit 6, maybe 7 in each pot. So we can fit 2 pots. Like, we'll have a soup pot and we'll have the Dutch oven and get those both going. So you've got your short ribs and you get them cut as evenly as you can. Season them heavily with salt and pepper and high heat oil. And then you're going to sear them as best you can. You want to get a good crust on these things. You want to get some browning and sear them on a very high heat. And then let them sit off to the side while you take that browned pan with all that beautiful meat juice and meat fat, and you saute up the trio, the mirepoix. You got your onions, you got your celery, you got your carrots, you get all that going together until those are nice and browned. Then you want to add in tomato paste. Let the tomato paste caramelize a little bit before you toss everything together with that. Then, and this is always the fun part, you pour in each pot a whole bottle of wine. Now, we have in our wine areas what we call the sacrificial lambs, because we have a lot of wine in this house. There's like 200 bottles. And some of them we forgot to drink and they're no longer good. Some of them were just, something that we bought that we thought we'd try that we weren't really feeling it. Some wines we know are going to be sacrificial lambs, and we'll buy like a $15 Bordeaux at Total Wine and More. And so you pick out any kind of red wine will work. So we had a Pinot Noir that was way past its drink date. So use that, and also used a cheap Bordeaux for the other pot. And then you pour in your wine, you pour in your beef broth, and then you put in those short ribs. Put everything mixed together, put in a bay leaf. You can add in herbs. Typically, we like to do thyme and parsley for short ribs, but you can do whatever you want, really. And then get it to a boil. put it in the oven, covered, for like 3 hours. And that's it. The beautiful thing about braising is once you get all the prep done, you can kind of just sit and wait for everything to tenderize and get so soft and incredible. Now, what do you serve braised short ribs with? This is the ultimate comfort food aspect of it. When I think comfort, I think potato. There is nothing as comforting as a potato, and you could do potato so many different ways, but I would say for braised short rib and some other dishes that I'll talk about, mashed potatoes are the way to go. I like to go red, but gold is also fine. I like to do it where the skin is incorporated, and I'm pretty simple with mashed potatoes because you don't need to really dress this one up, and you'll hear why in a second. So just salt, pepper, garlic, butter, cream, more butter, even more butter than that. And you've got your mashed potatoes. You've got your short ribs that are braising. There's got to be something green on the plate. Otherwise, we'd feel guilty about this. And that's when we get the green beans. Green beans are so easy. They're so easy, especially if you get the haricots verts from Trader Joe's. You just open up the bag, toss it in oil, salt, and pepper, put it on a sheet pan, 350 for like 10 minutes. Easy. If you really had the time and you have the energy and you don't mind messing up another pan, parboiling them is also incredible. You know, just getting them to a boil for about a minute or two, then cooling them off, and then sauteing them. That works out really well too. But I think the simpler the better because you're doing so many other things. So once the short ribs are ready to come out, they've been braising for 3 hours, you're going to take the short ribs out and rest them somewhere where they can stay warm. And you're going to strain out all of that wonderful braising liquid, that mixture of broth and wine and spices and herbs. And you're going to try to simmer that down until you get a meat gravy. Oh, and I forgot to mention adding a little flour in before you put in the broth and the wine helps out a ton with that because you want it to be a little thick because this is what you're going to cover your short ribs on, and it's also what you're going to cover your mashed potatoes on. And it is such a winner. It is so good. And then part of the other comfort food aspect of braised short ribs for me is the fact that I get to open some nice big reds. You know, we mostly during the week drink Pinot Noir because we usually aren't eating beef unless it's a special occasion. But when you're talking braised beef, you need a cab, maybe a cab blend, maybe a Syrah. There are so many options. Let's see. We did this last weekend with our friends, and our friends specifically request when we do braised short rib that it is a winner. It is a game changer. And I think we definitely had a cab, always have a cab, because I love Cabernet. I really, really do. Here we go. Pulling up the picture right now. We opened a Cabernet from Marco Lucchesi's Section Wines. He is, I think I've told you about him before. He's up in the San Ynez area. He has a tasting room in Buellton, and he's from Tuscany, and he takes his Italian know-how with California grapes and just makes magic. And his 2019 cab was perfect. Les Mistral was the Syrah that we had, and Les Mistral is part of Folktale Winery up in the Monterey Carmel area. We just discovered them recently because they're attached to this steakhouse up there, 7th and Dolores, and great tasting room, really nice Syrah. And then we had friends over, so we could open 3 bottles, you know. I'm not drinking all of it myself, and it's nice to go back and forth and see which pairs better. We also opened a Dow Mayotte, and the Mayotte is, I believe it is a Cab Franc and Merlot blend. So you had a red blend, you had a Syrah, you had a Cab, and you try all of those back and forth. And it was really cool, and I didn't notice it at the time when I had selected these bottles, but I really ended up going up and down the coast because I've got Santa Barbara County, I've got Paso Robles, and then I've got Monterey. So that was a winner. That was really, really good. But I needed more comfort food this week than that meal. So while we knew we were doing braised short ribs for friends, we also on Sundays do a lot of make-aheads. And we were thinking it's going to be cold, it's going to be windy, something else that would be make-ahead that's kind of that comfort food. Plus, I don't know about you, but whenever I make mashed potatoes, I make way too many mashed potatoes. You know, you either can buy a few select potatoes or you get that 3-pound or 5-pound bag, and you might as well just go ahead and make all of it. So we had a ton of leftover mashed potatoes. We still wanted more comfort food throughout the week. So that's when we did similar, but different enough that it stands up on its own. And it's funny, it's a meal that I never even thought about making until this year, and now we're obsessed. Good old-fashioned pot roast. You can't beat a pot roast. And it might be even easier than the braised short ribs because you just need to go find a chuck roast. You can see them at Ralph's, you can see them at Gelson's, any market, and get like a 3-pound roast. You're going to sear that on all sides. Then you're going to, once again, saute up your celery and your carrot and your onion, but you're going to cut these into bigger pieces because you're actually going to eat them. They're not just for the braising, they are also for part of the meal. And then the difference between pot roast and short ribs for me when it comes to everything that's in it is I don't use tomato paste. Tomato paste is a little more short rib. Pot roast, don't do that, but I do put in thyme and I put in a little rosemary, broth, big old bottle of wine, have to do the bottle of wine, of course, and braise that for 3 hours. And then you shred it like you're shredding pulled pork or pulled chicken or anything like that. And you put that over mashed potatoes and all the vegetables. And it's great for make-ahead because you can just put that into, I have these little Pyrex containers. And so we've had pot roast 3 times this week. It was real good. And I love it. And I could go for some more right now. But look, these are some of my comfort food meals when it's cold, when you want food that's just going to give you like a hug when you're eating it. That's what I'm talking about. If you have comfort food recipes that you want to share with me, what is the ultimate comfort food in your household? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. While we're on braising, let me tell you about one more braise that I'm obsessed with, and that is carnitas. I love carnitas. So typically you want to get a pork shoulder, a pork butt they're called, and you cut it into equal size pieces, like big chunks. You're going to sear all of those. You're going to get your spices together, your cumin, your chili powder, your salt, your pepper, your garlic. You're going to put in a whole bunch of onion, and then you're going to add a whole bunch of broth, let that braise for a few hours. It's going to smell so good. And then the interesting thing about carnitas is you really want to get it crispy. But how do you get a braised meat crispy? Well, first you braise it. Then you pull out the meat, shred it, put it on a sheet pan, and get the oven on broil. And you're going to pour a nice carnitas liquid, which is usually like a little bit of lime juice, a little bit of orange juice, and that will help crisp up and caramelize the carnitas. Do that with some pinto beans and some guac. That is a meal. That is comfort food. I think we're going to do that next week. I am craving it. While we're talking about other comfort things, I mentioned potatoes are so comforting. This is one that actually comes from my wife's family and something that she ate a lot growing up. And it is the easiest meal, and it is also ultimate comfort food. And that is a straight up baked potato, like a nice russet potato baked in the oven. That's so easy. Poke a whole bunch of holes, put it in the oven for a good hour, maybe longer. And then we top that with bacon, which you can either cook in the oven or if you have the time and the energy. I'm really good at doing it on my stainless steel pan, and I can get them as crispy as I want. But if you know what you're doing, on a sheet pan works as well. So you got baked potato, bacon, peas, which you just can get frozen peas and then heat them up for a couple minutes, and cottage cheese. That is some straight up good old-fashioned Southern comfort food. I love it. So these are some of my comfort food recipes. I got a whole bunch I'd like to share with you, but this is a mutual experience. I want you to share with me some of your comfort food recipes. Comfort food, you know it when you see it. Something that's definitely going to make you brave the fall, brave the winter, because it's a food hug. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Don in Malibu. Don, hello.
Good evening to you. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good. Hey, real quickly, before I get into it, because I was going to mention something else, a Thai coconut chicken soup with lemongrass in it.
Ooh,
scrumptious.
That is good.
That is definitely a meal in a hot evening. But the one I was going to talk about, I just pulled out of my smoker today, is I cooked a 4-pound chuck roast. And I smoked it for 6 hours. First of all, I seasoned it with my own seasonings. I had chipotle and peppers and things of that nature. But I put it on the smoker for 6 hours. And after 3 hours, I wrapped it in paper and finished it off. And I got to tell you something, it's pretty good.
Now, do you shred it afterwards or do you slice it like a brisket?
But like a brisket, because the key to having a chuck roast like a brisket is to not let the temperature run up over 200 degrees. So you watch the temperature. And when the temperature comes up to about 200, 202 degrees, you pull it off and let it rest for like 30 minutes to finish out. And it slices like a brisket. But when you eat it, it tastes the consistency of a chuck roast that's been shredded. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to have to try that. That sounds incredible. Don, thanks so much for sharing, buddy. Have a great weekend.
You got it. Don't forget the mashed potatoes, though.
Oh, yeah. You gotta. Love it. You know, I have got to try that, but I'm actually right now defrosting a brisket for this weekend. It is smoking season, also counts as comfort food. It sure does, because, you know, you're not going to go out. You're home. Get that smoker going. Make sure you have enough pellets. I'm really excited. You know, we've done a few different beef shows. We've done a brisket show. We've done a steak show. And a few times we've had listeners call in and say, hey, have you ever heard of Wild Fork? And they've got a location up in Thousand Oaks. They're opening one soon in Encino. And they're in a few other places, I think Manhattan Beach. They're up and down. They're nationwide, but there's a few locations in Southern California. So I've been looking at their website lately because I'm looking for brisket, but I don't want to go crazy expensive like that time where I had the Wagyu brisket from Snake River Farms, which was incredible. Loved it, but it's like $150 minimum. So I'm looking at Wild Fork's website, and they sell a trimmed brisket, which that saves 2 hours of me sweating with my tiny little knife trying to carve up all the fat pieces. Although the nice thing about that is you can make your own tallow. But I ended up buying a carved brisket, and it was like $3 or $4 a pound. And this 8-pound frozen trimmed brisket came to my door the next day. And I'm going to smoke that this weekend, and I am very excited about it. So I want to thank all the listeners that have shouted out Wild Fork Foods, because I'm giving them a shot, and I will report back to you next week. 800-222-KABC is the phone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is getting to that point of the year where it's going to get cold. It's getting dark early. It's dark right now, and it is time for comfort food. What is the ultimate comfort food in your house? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Klaus in Thousand Oaks. Klaus, hello.
Happy Friday, Randy. Happy Friday to everybody listening on KABC. So, one of my comfort foods is something that my mom came up with when I had to get my wisdom teeth pulled out a few years ago. And it is over easy eggs over rice. But my wife and I had spruced it up recently where we just take a simple pack of Uncle Ben's jasmine rice, throw it in the microwave, and do 2 over easy eggs. Put the eggs on, sprinkle a little bit of Lowry's seasoning, and this is the real kicker, literally. A teaspoon or less of Trader Joe's crunchy chili onion oil. That gets the glands going, that's the spice. But then you have your protein, you have your carbs, it's warm, you get the yolk going and the rice, a little bit of olive oil. And it's a year-round comfort food. We typically have it every Sunday night while we watch a show or a movie together.
That sounds so comforting. And yeah, that chili crunch from Trader Joe's, that stuff is crazy good.
It's very powerful, though, so use it cautiously. But it's really good. That's one of our comfort foods.
I love it, Klaus. Thanks so much for sharing. Appreciate it. Over easy eggs over rice. That sounds great. And you know what? These are some of those comfort food categories. Rice dishes, egg dishes. I mean, That is comfort food when you know it. Oh my goodness. We're going to keep going here. Your comfort food recipes, my comfort food recipes, as we talk about the food that just makes you love this time of year where it's cold out and it's dark out and you get to wear the comfy clothes that maybe have a little more room in them. It's Comfort Food Friday, everybody. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang, 800-222-KABC. This is Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. We're taking your phone calls on this happy hour Friday, 800-222-KABC, your go-to comfort food meals. Perfect time of year for comforting, stick-to-your-ribs goodness. Let's go to Jane in Long Beach. Jane, hello.
Hi. I was just listening to your talking about the Wild Fork, and I wanted to let you know they have one in Long Beach now. And it's only a couple miles from where you and John are going to be on Friday. So you could stop on the way home and load up on all the meats.
Oh, that's actually a great idea because I need to get pork because we want to do carnitas next weekend. That's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, just a couple miles away. It's in just past Belmont Shore. So you guys are going to be at Gladstone's. You just go right down Ocean Boulevard and you will run right into it.
That's perfect. Can we expect to see you at Gladstone's on Friday?
I'm going to try. I have to work, but I'm going to try and get it off and come by.
We would love to see you, Jane. Thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Love that. They're opening one in Encino in a few months, and it's going to be on Ventura, like right before Havenhurst. Very excited about that because it's a meat shop. How cool is that? We could always use more meat. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. 1-800-222-5222. Your favorite go-to comfort food meals. I got a whole bunch left. I want to hear from you. 800-222-KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC. 1-800-222-5222. Your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com. That's randykabc@gmail.com. It's Friday. It's happy hour. That's where we talk about food and drinking and adventure and travel and the good life, enjoying ourselves. The weekend is here. And today, because it's getting cold, it's getting dark, I thought it would be a great day to do an hour on comfort food. Comfort food meals. Maybe they're starchy, maybe they're ricey, maybe they're beany, but you know it when you see it. Food that just is like eating a hug. 800-222-KABC, your go-to comfort food meals. 800-222-5222. Let's go to Billy in Glendale. Billy, hello.
Randy, love your show every Friday. You get my salivary glands going. Comfort food I like, and it's perfect for Southern California since our weather's so mild here. Always cheers me up, Loco Moco, especially from King's Hawaiian Bakery. Sometimes I occasionally make my own with variation, and I'll make the Spam extra crispy and pour the gravy over it, along with some Portuguese sausage. You cannot go wrong with it. And smashing that egg yolk over the gravy, oh, man, that cheers me up for sure.
That is ultimate comfort food. I love a good Loco Moco. I was lucky enough to have Loco Moco in Lahaina on Maui at this place called 808 Grinds Cafe about 6 months before the fires. And it is just that is happy food.
In this town, Lenny matters.
Well, Billy, thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it, buddy. Yeah, Loco Moco is incredible. One day we're going to do a whole show about Maui because I cannot say enough good things about it, and I can't wait to go back. Let's go to Andrew in Garden Grove. Andrew, hello.
Hey, Randy. Hope you're having a great Friday. My go-to comfort food I've been making for about 10 years, and it's based off of a recipe shared by the Barbecue Pit Boys on YouTube. It's basically a Texas chili, no beans in there. And it, like you said, it's like eating a hug, but maybe a hug from a dragon because it's a little spicy. There's jalapenos and onions and paprika, cumin in there, and the moisture comes from beer and barbecue sauce. But let me tell you, it would put the King of England on his knees. It's such a delicious, warm delight when it's cold.
There is nothing I crave more this time of year than chili. In fact, do you know what I'm having for dinner tonight? Chili.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, I made
it's great.
a giant batch of it on Sunday, and we're finishing it up tonight. And I love a good chili. And my wife is from Texas, so I know Texas chili when I see it.
Oh, you already know the brisket can go in there. It's, some ground beef, no beans. I don't know if that's what you're doing, but
this one's
like.
A bean one because I had a whole bunch of dried beans I needed to use up, but I've had a no bean chili, and it's also incredible. That sounds great. That is the definition of comfort food right there, my friend.
Yes, definitely. Enjoy that chili, and I hope you have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks so much for calling. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Your go-to comfort food meals. You know, we've been talking a lot about eggs with the Loco Moco and the over easy eggs on rice. Let me tell you, this is one we had last weekend too. Smoked salmon scramble. Love the alliteration. So when I do smoked salmon, I smoke my own salmon. I take that Nordic Catch salmon and I put it in the Traeger at 180. Usually it takes about 2 or 3 hours for the filet to get to 140 because you're cooking it at a super low temperature. And then once that's done, my wife will toss that together with asparagus, goat cheese, dill, and eggs. And that is magic. That is the ultimate comfort brunch. Pairs great with a rosé. Now, we've talked about potatoes. We've talked about rice. Another stick-to-your-ribs goodness starch is polenta. Oh, and let me tell you, polenta can be made a few different ways. You have, creamy polenta, or you have more of like a brick polenta. And creamy polenta, this is an easy one, is polenta with mushrooms. Saute a whole bunch of mushrooms, put them over a bowl of creamy polenta, and maybe top that with a brown butter sage sauce, which you make that exactly like it sounds. Brown some butter, put some sage in there, pour that over mushrooms, maybe a little truffle oil, and then your creamy polenta. Oh, we got to make that this week. That's going to be a meatless Monday right there. Love it. Now, the other way that I like to do polenta is if you cook it longer, you can actually form it into like little polenta cakes. And this is a takeoff of a meal that I get at Cafe Pascual's, in my favorite place in the world, Santa Fe, New Mexico. And so I will take polenta, get it as thick as possible, and then I put it in a little Pyrex, cover it with red chili, black beans, sauteed up chorizo, get it as crispy as possible, and a mixture of Jack and cheddar cheese. Put that in the oven. Oh, it's so good. You got to have authentic red chili, which you can get at some grocery stores, or I get mine straight from The Shed, which is the legendary restaurant in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So every time we're up there, we get a whole bunch of bottles of the chili, but you can get a chili powder from like the chili shop, and that's a winner right there. We got so much more to talk about. It is Happy Hour Friday. We're talking comfort food. If you want to join us and share your comfort food recipes, now's the time. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. We're taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC as we talk comfort food. I just talked about that mushroom polenta while we're on mushrooms. When I say stick to your ribs goodness, I think something that really, really, really illustrates that perfectly, mushroom risotto. Get as many different varieties of mushrooms as you can and saute those up. Meanwhile, get some arborio rice going. So here's the thing with risotto. I know you got to stir, you got to stir, you got to stir. It takes forever. You know what's a way to make it a lot easier? When you're slowly pouring in the broth, make sure the broth is already hot. Like, heat it up on a separate pan and slowly spoon in the hot broth while you're stirring and stirring and stirring. But you add a little white wine, your risotto, your mushrooms, some chives. That is magic in a bowl. And now I want that. I'm going to gain about 20 pounds after this show. Hey, come celebrate the 20th anniversary of Gladstone's Long Beach with the John Phillips Show, Friday, November 15th from noon to 3. That's a week from today. We're going to be broadcasting live at Gladstone's in Long Beach, and we hope you come see us. There's going to be gift cards to give away. We would love to see you. And while we're at it, How about this? 790 KABC welcomes Leonid and Friends, the world's greatest Chicago tribute at the Saban Theater, November 16th. Tickets are on sale now at AXS.com, but right now, call in number 9 at 1-888-795-2222. Gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by the Saban at the Canyon, where music meets the soul. Good luck dialing. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. We're taking your phone calls on your go-to comfort food meals. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. This week alone, I made chili, I made pot roast, and braised short ribs. Let's go to Brent in L.A. Brent, hello.
Hey, Randy, you're killing me here. Who can afford to eat in this economy? You know, I'm starving. The other day, I took a friend of mine, a Lady Antoinette, she has Spanish royal lineage. So I couldn't take her to Pink's, so I took her to the Polo Lounge at the Beverly Hills Hotel. You know, I just had some salmon. She had steak tartare. She had champagne. I had a martini. It was over $300. This is nuts.
Well, you go to Beverly Hills, that's what you're going to pay. The beautiful thing about some of these comfort food meals is you can make them at home, and they're really cheap. Brent, thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. I mean, we're talking about, chili, super easy, and you make so much that you have it for the whole week. Pot roast is fairly cheap. The mushroom and polenta, even risotto. Some of these can be really cheap meals. The baked potato with bacon. Now, let me tell you. There's a certain category where it seems like every single thing is comfort food, and that is Cajun food. We talked about last week with the, best food city in America, and overwhelmingly people called in and said it's New Orleans. Well, I love me some New Orleans comfort food. I'll do a mean jambalaya. I love red beans and rice, and we did a whole show about this once, gumbo. I love making gumbo. I love eating gumbo. I think gumbo's got to come on the menu in the next couple of weeks. Or maybe we'll do that in Santa Fe because my sister-in-law is from New Orleans and she makes a mean gumbo. So everything it has to do with Cajun food. By the way, the same category of, rice dishes when it comes to gumbo or jambalaya. You wanted to go to Spain, you want some nice Spanish flavors. I love making paella. If you got to get the legitimate paella rice, which you can order online, or Sur La Table usually has it, but paella with some Spanish chorizo and chicken. And if you like seafood, you can add shrimp as well. Oh my goodness. That's another one of those meals where I can make a batch for a week and then I'll have that 3 times. It's so good. But, it's funny when I think about comfort food. I think about the first piece of comfort food my wife ever made for me, and I was obsessed with it, and I'm still obsessed with it, and I need to figure out a way to incorporate this. It doesn't get more American comfort food than casserole. And my wife, early on in our relationship, made the best tuna noodle casserole that I've ever had. And you want to talk about a cheap meal? This is a cheap meal because you've got egg noodles, which a bag of those is usually like $1 or $2. We're going to have to find a gluten-free alternative, which I think is fine. We'll use chickpea pasta, a can of cream of mushroom soup, a couple of cans of tuna, and you get all that together as your mixture, a package of frozen peas. So you toss everything like that together and cover it in cheddar cheese, and you cover it in crushed Lay's potato chips, and you bake that in the oven. It's been a while, but I'm obsessed with it. I don't know why peas have to be part of it. They just do. And it's a simple meal. But again, it doesn't have to be complicated for it to be comfort food. But we would always, get a big Pyrex dish, cut that into like 8 slices, and it's one of those meals where I get so impatient. I want it so bad as leftovers that I'll eat it cold, but it's better if you eat it warm. Yeah, we got to add that one back to the mix. The problem with doing a show about this is now I want to eat every single one of these things this weekend. I will be having my chili tonight, but I got to get some polenta back on the menu. I haven't cooked polenta in a while for a very funny reason. When COVID hit, we weren't sure how long this was going to last, if we were going to get ingredients, and my wife panic bought a 20-pound bag of polenta. And so we had a lot of polenta for a very long time. Then got to a point where like, there's no way that stuff's still good. I finally threw it out, but I'm like, I'm not buying any more polenta until I'm ready. And now I think I'm ready. I don't know if I'm going to do the red chili one. Maybe I'm going to do the mushroom one. Mushroom one's good. And we do like to do kind of a vegetarian meal on Monday and have like one night a week where we don't drink. But that's a really good one. So there are some of my comfort food classics. Braised short ribs, pot roast, carnitas, baked potatoes with cottage cheese and bacon, polenta with mushrooms, red chili polenta, smoked salmon scramble, chili, jambalaya, paella, red beans and rice, gumbo, risotto, tuna noodle casserole, and some great suggestions from the audience as well. That's how we do it on a Happy Hour Friday. And I can't thank you enough for always joining me for these shows. I love doing this job. It is a dream come true every day, but there's something just extra special sharing what I think is a lot of our passion. I mean, it's the one thing we all have in common. We all eat, we all like to eat, and we all want to make sure we have some real good meals ahead of us. So that's what we do here. Thank you all so much for listening. If you ever miss any episodes of the show, especially those Happy Hour Friday shows, go and download them at kabc.com. Click on podcast or go to kabc.com/newsblitz. Search for the KABC News Blitz and Apple Podcasts and share it with your friends, with your family, anybody that you know that likes comfort food. Send them this show. We'll see you Monday for another News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC.